Hi, Anemarie. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Lauren. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
All right, so briefly tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Anemarie Fiser. I've been in tech for more than 10 years now. I had different roles from software engineer to tech lead to product director. But my main focus for the past 3 years has been helping people in tech level up their tech careers. So that means getting into leadership positions or getting different roles in or transitioning into different roles in tech.
And I want to say, even though you work in tech, I feel like a lot of your advice is very applicable to other industries. Sometimes I feel like tech kind of sets the new rules around things, or people look to tech to be like, how is this done? Now, obviously, some industries it's like won't be applicable, but I think of tech as sort of like um, a good basis depending on whatever industry you're in, because it's a little bit creative, it's a little bit corporate, and it kind of mixes the two, which is why I'm so excited to be talking today because you recently wrote that, quote, the real job security these days is knowing you can get another job, end quote. I could not agree more with this. Like the true power move is knowing that you are in the driver's seat of, that next career move. What made you want to share that opinion out loud? And do you think there's too much false advice about job security out there? Like, did you want to kind of like debunk the myth of job security?
Yeah. So I wrote this article actually because I was surprised by the amount of answers that I was getting from people in regards to helping them with their job search and all of these different advices that are out there that they don't just seem to work, or at least they don't apply anymore in the day to day. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna put all of this knowledge together because it seems like it's helpful for people, and I wrote it in the article. And I saw a lot of people finding themselves in there or identifying with the strategy that I was sharing there. So coming back to your question, I think definitely things are changing. I speak mainly from the tech industry, but I also seen it's applicable for people outside of tech, as like you mentioned, tech has a big impact on everything that is happening around. And so I think things are changing very fast. It's crazier than ever, in my perspective,
Same.
for finding a job, for looking for a job. I think looking for a job, it's a full-time job on its own these days. And so I think the traditional ways of finding a job don't work anymore, or they are very slow and put a lot of pressure on people, and you don't see any results, and the motivation gets lost. So I don't think necessarily the advice that it's out there it's bad, but I think it's outdated. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons that I wrote this article.
What is some of the false advice that you see kind of over and over again? I'm thinking like shared by people on LinkedIn or on Instagram or in blog posts. What's some of the common advice that you see that you disagree with?
Well, I think first thing it's about the application process. I see a lot of just keep at it, just keep applying, just put your effort into it, just keep doing what you're doing. And I think that sometimes that might not work. I think before you give such advice, it's important to understand what are the efforts that people have been putting in the process, what actually they are trying, and how does this apply to where we are right now. So I think just randomly applying to hundreds of jobs does not work anymore without doing any extra steps.
Yeah.
And I do believe that in the past it used to work. Like we didn't have to do so much effort to get into an interview. Even in tech now, it's crazy. The number of applicants are just there's a lot of people on the market. So the companies basically rule the process, and they make their own rules. And so yeah, that's one of the advice that I don't agree with anymore. I don't think it's enough to just apply endlessly to jobs anymore.
Yeah. I've been saying for years, if you apply online and that's it, then you didn't finish applying. Because for me, and again, the job market, um, it's always been competitive, but you're right. This is something I've never seen before. And I do think that um, the comparison is sort of like when you have so many people who are laid off and able to treat job searching like it's a full-time job because it is a full-time job for them. That means if you're job searching and you're treating it like a side hustle or just like this thing on the side, your competition is treating it like a full-time job. So I also feel like the level of applications and effort and creativity being put into job applications today is just, it's insane. It used to be, here's our application process. If you followed that, it was enough. Now I almost feel like it's almost like an open invitation to be like, well, here's the application process, but tell us what else you can do, or tell us how creative you can be about it. So yeah, if it feels tough out there, I just want to like reaffirm your feelings or reassure anyone who's like, this is the hardest thing I've, recently had to do when it comes to finding a job. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so let's get back to your strategies, because you had a strategy and that's what we're really here for. So you relied on 3 specific strategies to help you build this job security. So let's review each one, which is, the first one is build a strong network. Let's get into the details of this, because on this show, everyone has heard me talk about the importance of networking. So get into the nitty gritty details of like, what is the tangible, actionable thing that people need to be doing on a regular basis to, in regards to networking, that helps build job security?
Yeah, well, it's as easy as starting to build a network, right? So wherever you are at any point, even if you have a job have been having the same job for years, or you're looking for a job right now, there is no better time to start than right now, right? So it's about starting to build that network. Now, how to do that? There are different ways to do that. First, starting with your current network, people around you. I really believe the close network, like the people around you, can be a very way stronger than you think.
Yeah.
So I've seen people getting jobs from just starting to tell their friends that they are looking for jobs. Oops, sorry. Which, by the way, a lot of people don't do these days. They feel like, for example, in tech, they feel like, oh, I don't know a lot of people in tech outside of my work, so there's no point in me sharing. But actually, it's a great way to start getting some opportunities. So start building a network with people around yourself. Starting in the job where you currently are. So it's getting out of your comfort zone, and you usually interact with the same people in the daily basis, with your team, with your like product people, whatever. Just get out of that bubble and meet some people outside. That means maybe taking some project that requires some collaboration with other departments, or with other engineering managers, or with other teams. Just kind of getting out and starting to meet other people and see what they're doing. The secret is these people are going to move around, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like you're building a network just for the company. Mostly these days, everybody is moving around. So you never know where you're going to find these people. It's funny how small the world is once you start tapping into it. So yeah, that's one of that's where I would start. Starting with expanding your close network, like reaching out to people around you, and then taking that to the next level, and outside, it's to start meeting with people outside of your close, like day-to-day interactions. That means starting to join events, starting to meet people. For example, LinkedIn, it's a great way to do that. I don't know if you know about this website. It's called Lunch Club. It's like you basically have lunch with people randomly on the internet. I actually did this for a while, and I got some friends out of there. I've got some business opportunities. It's funny how much you can get from a 45 minutes conversation with someone that you really hit it off with, you
Right.
know?
Yeah,
So yeah,
totally.
that's where I would start.
And also, everyone, we actually had an entire episode with someone who, she wrote a book on this. She works at AT&T, which is a huge company, and I know not every company is as big, but she wrote a whole book about how to network within your company. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. She also has a book, but I really agree with you, Anemarie. Someone once told me the best networking is working on a problem or like a project with other people, because then they learn what it's like to work with you, what you're good at. And so if you are not networking within your own company right now, highly, highly recommend you do that. It's actually, so I recently started a new job, and one of the things on my kind of list of career development things I don't want to forget to do is once a month, I've been trying to have a like meet and greet coffee chat with somebody else at the department. Now I work at a fully remote company, so sometimes that's a little hard. I have to kind of go out of my way, but it's like, okay, I'm on the brand team and the brand team works with the creative team really well. Okay, so fine. Those are two teams to start with. And then it's sort of like I follow the breadcrumbs from there. And these coffee chats don't have to be anything crazy. They can be really casual. I'm just here getting to know you. Tell me a little bit about what brought you to this company. So I want to take the pressure off if anyone's feeling like, well, I work on the accounting team and how am I supposed to just like randomly talk to someone on the marketing team? People love to talk about themselves and just ask them what their story is. Like I completely agree. That's such a good place to start. And one of the biggest regrets I see is I'll get these LinkedIn messages from people who work at big companies and they'll be like, I have not been prioritizing building my own network because I've been so busy working, and this year I'm trying to do it. And so I really encourage everybody to find a way to like maintain some sort of consistency. So if you can go 10 miles an hour, all year versus trying to go 100 miles an hour for a month, that kind of thought process here. So really, really good points. Okay, the second part of your strategy is about building a personal brand. This is another one of those buzzwords where I know everyone on the show has heard it a ton. So talk about the specifics that you share around building a personal brand and why this is important to job security.
Yeah, I mean, the personal brand basically helps you exclude yourself from identifying yourself with the company, right? It's about building a brand about yourself, and it's you regardless of where you're working or what's your role. It's about what you're doing, what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about things, and what you're passionate about. And in a professional way, right? Here we're very focusing on the professional area and how can this help you reach that job security we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, in regards to building this personal brand, again, I would start in the company where you are right now. On how think about your personal brand and how people think about you when your name is mentioned, for example, right? Or how many people know your name? That's another way to look at it. And there's so many tools that you have and which can help you be proactive in building this personal brand. So when it comes to your current company, it's about taking that step into the visibility, into the spotlight. Maybe jumping into some project that require, like I mentioned before, collaboration with other departments, or they get more visibility in front of the higher stakeholders, or doing that demo that no one wants to do in the team. There's always an opportunity, because everybody avoids the spotlight. So it's kind of just identifying these opportunities in your day to day that help you get visibility and that help you tell your story and make people more aware about the work that you're doing, and how are you contributing to the bigger impact. So don't keep your head down. We all have things that we care about. We all have things that we're passionate about and proud of in our work. It's just a matter of letting people know about it, and don't just expect them to know because you're doing them. I feel a lot of people tell me, well, if I'm doing a good job, then people would just recognize it. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore, right? So you can build your brand by just being more visible. Second, it really helps if you have a niche. So you can be good at multiple things, and the roles today usually involve having a different set of responsibilities that don't fall into one category. But it's about finding something that you want to be known for,
Yeah.
right? So that really helps to niche it down. So you have a thing that you're really passionate about, I don't know, product or accessibility, make it as specific as possible. And then let that be your thing. Maybe start, like you mentioned before, start a community around it, start a book club around it. Talk in front of, have a conversation. There are these lunch events that companies usually have where you can go and give a presentation about something. Well, that's a great opportunity for you to go and talk about your thing. So yeah, those are the key part: more visibility, and second, having a clear, like a clear niche or a clear thing that you want people to know you for. And yes, there might be other people know for that. So one thing that I hear is that why would people listen to me when there's so many people out there talking about the same thing? Well, it's because it's you. You have your own particular style of talking about things, or like you're passionate about a certain part of it, and it really, people will see through that, right? So it really helps. So
Yeah.
um that's the part of the internal in the company on how to build that. Do you have any more ideas on that?
Well, I was just thinking another tip to add to personal branding is sort of where do you share this? So you talked about sharing it, in your team meetings, in your one-on-ones with your managers. So think about what is it that you want to be known for, and then think of like really good brands. They get their messaging out in a variety of places. They get their messaging across on billboards, in, audio, like on a radio or a commercial or whatever. You see it, you hear it. And so you almost have to think of your personal brand as being promoted similar to like your favorite, how Nike shoes does it or whatever, meaning be everywhere, have some sort of consistent messaging of what you're known for, what you're good at, what you're interested in, and then talk about that at your company, talk about that on LinkedIn, or if Instagram's more your preference, or TikTok, whatever. I don't think you have to be on every channel. I just think that you need to have consistency. I think one of the really tough things about personal branding that I see people mess up on is they have like an identity crisis. They're one person at work, then they're one person online, and then one thing here. And like, I understand maybe you want to be thoughtful about what you're sharing online because you can't share your work or something like that, but then share your opinions, share really interesting articles and your hot take on it. Anything, basically what I've decided is like, thought leadership is not something just for executives and CEOs. Thought leadership is just really having an opinionated take on something. And we all have opinions, and how can you articulate that? So I just want to give people a couple other ideas. If you're like, well, I don't have my niche, it's like, I have an episode that came out where I was talking about in my job search. I really had to narrow it down to sort of like 3 categories that I was interested in because it was hard to niche down. I understand sometimes it is hard to niche down. You don't have to, I mean, it's helpful to have a niche, but if you can't niche down, then figure out what you're not going to talk about. Then like, let's narrow it down that way. So, and the other last thing I'll say is like, find examples of people who are doing this really, really well, and like, study them, study how they're doing it, where they're doing it, when they do it, not to copy them, but to be inspired by that. And sometimes, what you're envious of is actually a really good clue of, okay, I'm envious of this person because they're really consistent at posting on LinkedIn. How can I set up my systems in my week so that I post on LinkedIn once a week or whatever it is? So that would be the thing I add to that combo.
One note on that, because you mentioned the niche part, I totally agree. I don't think you need a niche in order to talk to build a personal brand and to share about it on the internet or on a platform. I actually didn't. It took me years to find mine, right? So I kind of tried different things, but I also think people overthink a lot the process of talking about something, about publishing, about sharing their ideas, right? So
Yeah.
I think you don't have to think so much. Is this a right idea? Is this something people like? Just talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like you would
Yeah.
tell it a friend, just put it there and then you will see. Like it's about building the audience. You can decide later what do you want to do with the audience. You know, you can niche down later. This is another way of going at it, which actually was my strategy. So it really helps to think about it, but it's not a requirement, like you mentioned, and don't overthink it so much. If you want to start somewhere, just like you said, talk about an article, give your perspective on something, or just share, if it's possible, what you do on a daily basis. You might be surprised on how much interest there is out there on things that you find just day-to-day job work, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's as simple as that. And one more thing in regards to the consistency. So it really helps if you start small. Like you don't have to post everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
It can get overwhelming really fast. It's just about finding your space. For example, with platforms, try out a couple of them and see which one fits you most, like your style. Where do you want to be? Like starting and having this kind of focused, it really helps to not get burned out in the process very, very quickly.
Yeah, totally agree with all those. Okay, the third step in your strategy for creating real job security is keep growing. Again, broad for a reason. So let's, kind of drill down into the specifics. And I'm curious too, specifically on this, how do you test the value or your value on the job market?
Well, the final end test is for you to basically take an interview and just
Mhm.
see that you can get a job, and that you can go through an interview process, and you can and that your value is what you think it is on the current market. So the thing that I recommend to people is, from time to time, just apply to a company, have a conversation, go through an interview process, see the offer, see the roles that are available to you. I think that's the final test. On a smaller scale, you can just keep your eyes open, like you're doing your research on what is happening in currently in the industry, talking with people around, because I think it happens very often that you get very trapped into your current field of vision in your company, and the
Yep.
reality, it's not always the way you see it, like in your group. And so just kind of expanding that. For example, I don't know, I read newsletters from like different people from different industries, from different environments. This kind of gives me a broad understanding on what's happening from people's real perspective. This is not just like high
Yeah.
level research information. So yeah, I think the best way to test your value and to make sure you're still relevant, and that whatever you think you are worth on the market or where you stand, the best way to test that is to basically just going through an interview process and seeing where you get. I've seen a lot of people that did that as a test, and they just switched to the new job because it looks so good. So you never know.
Yeah, I actually, one of my new managers actually encourages this, like set it in. So we do all these surveys, like employment surveys of like, how's it going on the team? Do you feel aligned with the vision and the goals, all that good stuff. One of the questions is related to like, do you think you'll still be working here a year? It's like, again, employee survey kind of things. And he even said when he was going through the reviews of our team, like, I actually hope that more of you are thinking about having conversations, taking interviews, and always exploring those career conversations. I thought that was so incredible to hear that come from a manager to their employees, basically encouraging them, like, take interviews, have the conversations. Don't forget to make time for that, because not only is that really good for you and your career, but it's also really good for the company. You might have an interview and be like, well, I've been feeling kind of about my company, but now I just have this interview and I'm actually feeling really jazzed about what I'm doing. I realize. So it is also, to your point, that reality check that is sometimes really important to have. And maybe, you think it's going to be so easy for you to go out and get a job. And then you test the market and you're like, wow, it's not. So now you're encouraged to start networking. Whatever it is, testing your real value of the job market is something you should be doing on an ongoing basis, not just when you're looking for a job. Okay, so you have another tip in here that I really liked, which is thinking future wise. With the talk of AI and everything like that, I think when you think future wise, it's like, okay, we're all going to be robots. But like, how do you think future wise in terms of your career growth? This thing that is highly personal to you and very like something only you can do. What is the lens that you're talking about?
So this idea, it's about the building a plan, a long-term plan when it comes to your career, when it comes to opportunities. So, for example, on the building a network point, think about that. Whatever relationship you are investing in now is not just for now or for the next month or for the next year. It's forever if you're doing it right, right? So just think about that this professional network that you are building, it's going to be there if you're changing jobs, if you're changing roles. Also, these people are growing as you are growing, right? They're going to be in different positions, and you never know where you're going to meet these people, right? So always keep in mind this long term. It's not
Yeah,
just how this person can help me now, right? Like all my opportunities for the past 3 years, or everything, like all the types of collaboration that I had, were they came from people that I knew in the past that I haven't talked to in years. But
yeah.
because we
It always
built we
happens like
built
that.
we build that strong relationship,
Yeah,
and we build that trust when we work together, then that's already in there. That doesn't dissolve because we haven't been talking for 3 years.
yeah,
So it's about building that type of relationship that in 3 years you can go and say, hey, you remember me from this project, we work
yep,
together, this is where I am now, I see you are working for this company, I'm interested in this role. Kind of this approach. And it also means that whatever you're doing, for example, when you're testing your value on the market and taking those interviews, keep in mind that a lot of people are worried that, oh, what if I pass the interview and then I will say no, and then they will hate me and they will not talk to me, whatever. Like, you have to think about that they want, and it's in their advantage to hire you, right? Like, there's no one there keeping a book with names, or people don't have time for that, right? So when you're saying no to a company, always leave a door open. Or when you're leaving a company, always leave a door open. Don't, throw the door, close the door in their face, because you never know where you're gonna meet those people again,
Yeah.
or if you're like want to go back, come back at some point, or at some point this company that you said no to their offer now, maybe in 2 months, God forbid, you lose your job and you just say, hey, I've changed my mind and I
Yeah.
want to work for you. I actually had companies that I said, look, I'm not available now, but let's talk in 6 months, or in a year. I will
Yeah.
see where I am. And I've never ever got a response of, oh my God, how can you do this, right? Because company are prepared for this, and it's in their benefit also. They have you there on their list. They know you are a good candidate, so they can reach out to you easily. The trust process is already in there. So it's always keeping this in mind, this long term process that you're affecting, and how does benefits you in the long term.
Yeah,
So
it's like
maybe
playing
this
the
helps
long
with the
game. No,
investment.
I completely agree. And I think it's like you kind of never know where it's going to go or how it's going to turn out. And so you want to leave as many opportunities open. One of my main takeaways from this conversation is that creating job security used to be something we kind of relied on a company to do for us. Now it is something that you have to be taking control of it. Even if you're at a great company, you have to be stepping into this role. You own your job security, you run it, you are proactively managing it. It's very empowering. I think of like the comparison is like managing your own money, like maybe you have like a retirement fund that helps you, or financial advisor, but there's nothing more empowering than knowing that the financial security is in your hands, that your job security is in your hands, and that control is something that no one can kind of take away from you, which I think is so great. So, Anemarie, this has been an incredible podcast episode. We've learned a lot. I think I'll put a couple episodes in the show notes related to networking with your own company. We also had one on reputation management. That was another really good personal brand thing. So I'll put all that in there just for anyone who's like, I'm ready to take all of this to the next level and kind of keep going on it. Anemarie, where can people find you, keep learning from you? Any links that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to find me it's on LinkedIn. I'm there almost all day. So, and I respond to every DM. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or any follow up or any conversations that you want to get into. I'm very happy to talk about it. Also, I have a newsletter. It's focused on tech leads, but I also from time to time share some of these career related tips that apply to everyone. If you're interested, I will share the links with you, Lauren, and you can add them. But I'm really happy to. I'm very interested in always having this career conversation, and I'm passionate about seeing people, broadening their perspective when they realize how much control they have over their careers. So whatever questions you have, just ask.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been so helpful, and I'll put all of that in the show notes.